Please give him a warm welcome.
Cheers, thank you, Royd. You may hear that I'm currently flued up with this, so I've actually forgotten to put in my past experiences on this. It's only going to be current, so first ownership up. So I wanted to start with, what do we mean by transformation? So I thought, where does anyone go for these sort of answers these days? Is Wikipedia, and then there was like 15 different pages that I could have picked from. But for me, this sort of summed up where most transformations come from, and it really is about, it's transformation, fundamental changes because of shifts in market, and that's why companies want to do this sort of transformation thing. They want to transform how they work, they want to change how they go forward with it. We've had many conversations around these sort of teams that are doing Agile, being Agile. It does come down to practices and behaviours, and you need both sides of this to make this actually really worth having as a thing to do. We have, from the doing Agile side of things with the practices, this is where we end up with the cargo culting mindset that people have. For those of you that don't know what cargo culting is, it's a term after World War II, when the Americans came onto an island. They built some runways, during World War II they built the runways, towers, and obviously the planes would come along and drop the supplies for them. After World War II, when they left, the people on the island sat and made up towers, made up runways, put coconuts on their ears for bringing things in, and these big birds didn't come anymore. And it was because of the practices. That was the practice, but they didn't understand how it all fit together. And I think a lot of times we do this, we'll go through the practices, but we don't actually change our behaviours, and that's one of the failures that I have seen a number of times when I've tried to do this. So really getting people to think about both sides of this is a key thing. So from the 13th annual State of Agile report, which was last year's one, this year's one I think it's just taken the survey now. So if you go and have a look for it, you can put your own view into this. And what's really interesting on this is some of these numbers have changed over time. Some of the stuff at the bottom around the reason for adopting Agile, better management distributed of teams, was quite high up originally, and it sort of dropped quite a lot in the recent times. Things like improving engineering discipline. That is where my heart is. I'm a developer at heart, but people don't bring that into the Agile world. They don't see that as that, and for me, this is one of the things that causes these failures to happen. Is if you don't look at your quality of things, then all you're doing is generating shit faster, and that's the bottom line. We get it out the door. We've all worked on a program which may be a greenfield program, and a user story takes 2-3 days to get out the door, and because we haven't got the quality there, it ends up in a few months' time being weeks to get out the door into months, and that's really where we come from in that respect. So this is where people are hitting with. Now, this is one of my, I hate the term Agile maturity. I don't believe it's a thing. I believe it is a thing for the commodity market, if you like. We can make your teams more mature in Agile by doing these 10-step programs, which is absolutely shockingly bad. I did a talk a few years back on Agile fluency, which is more around where do we want the team to get to, and how do we get them there and support them to get there, and it isn't a checkbox exercise. And I will talk about where that's come in before, but this was where some of the teams came, and if you're actually looking here, you can probably see, sorry, wrong button, 53% are using Agile practice but still maturing, and everyone else is probably down here. So the big pocket size of this isn't quite there. So it's really holding people back in this space. So high level of the overviews of William Hill transformations. This is what I know of and what I've been told by others. There could be other transformations, and as I was sitting there, I believe there was another transformation at this point here, but if I spoke to my old boss, he said it never happened, but other people said it did, so it's quite weird. So 2013, 2014, they had one that came in. It was led by a small independent company. It only affected a small part of the business, and the autonomy was too much. This is one of the things we found from this, that the teams were able to go off and do what they wanted, how they wanted. There's a great amount of autonomy, and it just failed. And it just meant they could just create these balls of mud. No one had any controllership over it. It then sort of enterprise architecture starts to go, well, why were you even doing this? Why haven't you spoken to us? And for a large corporation like William Hill, it's a key thing. So 2017, 2018 comes along, and then we get one of our big, friendly, large management companies to come in and say, we can save you millions of pounds by doing X, Y, and Z. And again, look at all this sort of checkbox exercise stuff you could do. And there were some really big wins in it. One of the things was the autonomy wasn't enough. There wasn't enough autonomy. We were quite straight down the line with what we were saying to people. And then now, 2019, we have had some external. We had a smaller management company come in, but they've been kicked out now. But now it's being led by the internal coaches and external providers that we're picking by hand, the ones that we feel have the same values as us, can drive us in the right way, and I'll talk about that towards the end. So the difference on this one is phase teams across the business, so we can see where it works, make sure we're not affecting people as we're doing it, because obviously a big bang like we had on the company-wide one caused a lot of problems. And the autonomy is we're saying there's a freedom within a framework. So rather than you can pick anything you want, we're saying you can pick from this limited piece, but it's there to give you the support. The other side to that is that we're really key around is if there's something in the framework, if there's nothing in the framework that fits what you need to do and the way you want to work, then let's have a conversation and work out how we do that. We're not saying it's a no, but we need to make sure you've got the support there to make it happen, because that's one of the things that probably didn't happen in the previous ones is around the support mechanism with it. And with this current model, with the internal coaches, there's only so many of them, only so many of us, and there's only so much jam each of us can give people. So some people end up with no jam, some people end up with lots of jam, but we try to make sure we spread it out as much as we can for people. So that's a key one. So that's the real high level transformation we got to. So transformation 1 was very much bottom up. Had this little agile bubble. There's a bit of an agile tax on that to make sure that the integration into the rest of the business happen. Transformation 2 was a little bit of top down, bottom up. You know, the CEOs at the top there sitting there going, yeah, I want us to be agile, I want us to do DevOps, and all this cool stuff, and then this bubble sitting there. And what we're missing is this middle piece. So what did we learn from doing those? It's really key, some really big learnings we got from this. And one of the things we've learned from the first 2 transformations, I suppose, leading into this 3rd stroke 4th, depending on who you talk to, is really making sure we take those learnings and learn from them, really, and move forward with them. And the big one for me was boiling the ocean. So there was a piece of work I had to do last year, which was 28 bankable teams. It meant I had to get 28 teams across William Hill to check a box that said they had done something, 13 different boxes. And at that point, that meant that we have saved the business £4.8 million. And I was like, it's a checkbox exercise. That isn't going to happen. But because of the large consultancy, you know, they made their money and buggered off. And one of the big things I realised from that, and I'll talk about this, actually, I've got a thing on this in a second. But yeah, boiling the ocean. So that's why you can see that we've gone from, in Transformation 1 was a very small pocket of the business. Transformation 2 was like, let's do everything. Now Transformation 3 is much more, okay, let's see if it works in this space. What can we learn from it and feed those learnings back? And some of the teams we've worked with in this, we've taken those learnings and fed them straight back into the next workshops we've done with other teams in the business. So for example, in this space, exactly in this room, did a session with some of the guys in the retail team. And we took those learnings and fed them into the stuff that we did with the digital teams in Krakow, and then vice versa as we brought it back in. So we went originally in this current format, I think we went from 8 steps, 9 steps, program of work to get people through, and we've gone down to 3 now because we learn every time we did it and we get faster with it, we understood what we were doing, and getting that knowledge out there. So yeah, rule number 1, do not boil the ocean. Start small, start with one team. And it may take 6 months for that one team to start bedding this stuff in, but the osmosis will start to happen. Other teams will pick it up, and that's where you get it from. There will be bird strikes. There will be things that will attack you and slow you down. This is the number 1 thing that will happen. Try not to let it derail you is really hard to do with this. We had an announcement 2 months ago, I suppose. I'm looking at my colleagues here to try to remind me, which was one of the biggest bird strikes you can ever have for a transformation, and that is a change of CIO. And when that happens, you just sit there and go, right, all bets are off, let's pause this, see where we go with it. Luckily, he's come in He's killed off 2 bits of it, which we all knew was technically dead anyway, but kept the other 2 pieces going, which is where I'm involved in it, luckily, for me. But even ongoing with the teams, you're always going to hit these sort of little things that are going to slow you down, and we just need to talk about them in those organisational impediments. We haven't quite cracked how to fix the organisational impediments. 9 times out of 10, it ends up with me buying stuff that I shouldn't buy and then getting told off by my management for putting things on expenses that shouldn't be on there, or upsetting someone else in another department, but just because I want to get stuff done. So I'm a change agent. People should be upset. I don't care. That's my, well, today I don't care because I feel like crap, but generally I do have a bit of empathy, but we'll see how that goes. There will be train wrecks. It happens. Releases will break. Releases will fall over. It's not an easy path. And that is some of the things we found. People thought overnight, and I've had this conversation with people in internal comms, that would turn around and say, well, once we've put them on the training, that's it, isn't it? They're then DevOps. It's like, no, they need the support, they need the coaching, they need the understanding of it. And some of the bits that we did massively miss, even in this transformation right now, is talking to our product owners to say we need time to do the technical practices that will allow us to stop this sort of stuff from happening. Or if they do happen, they're small and the blast radius is a lot smaller than they are today. You know, a lot of the applications that we have are still monolithic. So when they do go wrong, the blast radius is absolutely massive for us. And we're working on breaking those down, and seeing how we can bring those forward for teams. So that's a real key one, and that's where our architecture friends come in and help us break it. It's a choice. There's plenty of choice out there, and that can be overwhelming for teams. If we allow teams to go out, and we've got 5 teams and each one of them are using a different CI/CD solution, how do we support that at scale? How do we get that out there? And talking to some external partners of ours who have done this on a massive scale at places like Barclays, which you've got to imagine is 400-500-year-old company or whatever it is, and it's massive across the world. And they've said what they did was they limited the choice, but they still allowed some choice. So that freedom within a framework is still there, and we found that that's starting to make it a lot easier for teams. We can have arguments in-house around Jenkins versus GitLabs versus Concourse, whatever the argument is. End of the day, for us, that isn't going to make us as a company different to our competitors that are out there, like Skybet, like Bet365. You know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. That isn't the thing that's going to make us different. The thing that's going to make us different is our product, and the time to market on that product is really key for that. So by limiting some of these options, yeah, we're going to get some pushback on teams who want to use these things, but what we're not saying is that is the only options you've got. If you can put a good case of the capability not being there that is going to help you go faster, then let's have those conversations and have a framework around that allows people to move forward and make those changes and adopt new ways of working, and that's really key for us as well. Metrics. This is always a favourite one of mine, and wouldn't be anything about metrics without Deming and Goldrat involved. So this is something else we learned around. We started off with some Agile KPIs, which dovetail really nicely into some DevOps KPIs. And those KPIs are the lead time, cycle times, number of releases, number of change failure rates, number of bugs, number of technical debt. And there will be something else. And we then sort of split our cycle times down into flow times, as we called them. So one of the stories that we have, and big corporations will see this a lot of the time, where the execs will turn around and say, IT are too slow, you took 9 months to deliver this feature. When we looked at the data, it sat with product for 7 months, and we had it for 6 weeks. And it was their business that decided not to release it for the rest of the time. So that's why we then look at the metrics to say, actually, yeah, you gave it to us then, but you weren't ready for it until here. And that told a story and put the emphasis back on them. And that helped us have some it helped a lot of the difficult conversations of why are we so slow. We could pinpoint exactly where they are. And with Chris in the room as well, it's really useful because we noticed this in one of our teams that we've got on the journey. And we noticed that we had a really big dependency on another part of the business. So we just broke that dependency, and instantly our cycle times dropped overnight, but we were still delivering the same stuff. We just moved the dependency along a little bit and moved it left, shift left it with it, and then that's allowed us to go faster. So sometimes we can look at these things and say, actually, do we need to wait for them? How independent are we? And luckily in that team, the team could release their side of things a lot quicker and independently to this other team, so why hold it up? So by looking at our metrics, we had it. But going back to what was said earlier around this, I think if we miseducate people on metrics, they will misuse them, and that is a fundamental thing. So we have said time and time again, no metric will be shown without the narrative that goes with it to show the trend. The trend on its own will not tell the true story. So for example, if a team's technical debt shot up over 1 week and you over one period, and the business saw that on its own, they'll be asking what's happening. Whereas if there's a narrative behind it saying, well, the team started work on this piece of code that they haven't touched for 6 months, and they've started to actually register the technical debt, that is a good thing, because that's showing us that we're looking at the right things, and now we're going to start bringing that down. It tells a proper story. Business can get behind it. And we did find this on a couple of times. Our old CEO, again, one of our big bird strikes is we had to change the CEO as well. So with that, the previous CEO would ask in the quarterly business review, what does a good cycle time look like? And my manager would turn around and say, it's not about that, it's about the trend going down. And then the same CEO came to this office, had a presentation by one of the teams, and asked exactly the same question, and it was almost as if it was scripted. But that person then turned around to the person he asked and went, no, it's about the trend. So we're just pushing that message through. It's about the trend of the cycle time. Cycle time starts going up, start to ask a question, and let's find out what the rest of the metrics are telling us. That one single metric on its own will not tell us a lot, but having the right number of it. Having too many metrics, that's another area we went into. We started talking about those, about team metrics, about external metrics, internal metrics. What we've started to say to teams is, what are the metrics that matter to you? Here we're going to have these key ones that we're going to have across everyone, and they're going to be framework agnostic or methodology agnostic, so we don't care about, hence why we don't do the story pointing piece, because that may not affect a Kanban team. But we're saying to teams, what do you want? So now really good metrics are coming out, which are business metrics, like how many unique customers, what's the average bet, what's the gross margin, and then using those numbers, the teams can then ask that piece around the story to go, but what does this story do to any of these metrics that we worry about? Because if it doesn't affect any of them, why are we doing it? And then the teams are allowed to push that back. So that is a early thing we're doing right now. We're not doing it straight away, but we are allowing this, by showing that up, the teams can start to do those pushbacks. So then the team starts to own that product. Certainly where we want to be going to. We're certainly early on this journey. As I say, it's a 2019 piece. And it was probably towards the middle of 2019 when we started the journey in this new guise. Touching back to this again, this is more around, not everything is a green field of lushness. There's a lot of brownfield stuff out there. We know there's problems there. So this is where we need to have those conversations with our product owners to say, look, you need to give us some more time to fix these bugs, to fix this technical debt, to improve the way we do CI/CD. So right now, one of the teams we're working with, their continuous integration tests at the integration point. So once all their microservices are put together, I found out 2 weeks ago that it's never gone green. So it's like, how do you even trust this? It turned out there were some issues with environments, which is always one that catches us. So it's like, well, why don't we start fixing those? So, but product owner won't prioritize it. Okay, so that's a conversation for me to have. So we are starting to have those. We're going to start moving those forward with a lot of teams. But right now, we know that nothing is green. The grass isn't always greener when we come to this, but we understand there's going to be things that are going to get in our way. But if we give you the right tools, we'll be able to make that change. This is another one that really did drop off in the other two transformations, from my understanding, is around education. If you look at where I showed the diagram of the CEO at the top there and this little bubble in IT working away, that's because when this large corporation came in, a large management company, consultancy came in, they sort of had a conversation with the execs, didn't really educate them, but had played buzzword bingo with them, I suppose. Did that at the top, all the stuff I want to hear, and then went into the bottom to the teams and started training them. So then when I was in, I started about 2 weeks before they were rolling off the project. And one of my first questions was, have you educated the middle management? And the response was, do you think we should do? Yes, that's what top up, bottom down is about. And that's one of the things we found. So education is key. If you do not get the education for this right, it will fail. That is fundamentally it. This, you could do all the other stuff that I've said, it will still fail if you don't do the education piece. And that is a big monetary burden of depending how you want to do it. If you want to do it in-house, you want to bring external people in, you want to be able to get people qualified and certified in certain things. That's obviously a cost to that. So these things aren't cheap, and that's always missed off by a lot of it. And when you have got these big consultancy bits in it, they're saying, oh yeah, we'll just get these people in. So when I joined back in March of last year, there was 1, 2, 3, 4 Agile coaches in Krakow that were all rolling off because they weren't good enough by all accounts. I never met them. And then I had to bring another 4 on to help out with that space. That took a while. But what I found in a lot of them was that everyone was doing their own transformation. None of it was held up because we had a consultancy come in and say, this is what you should do, and then just let them off to do it as they wanted to. So I had to unpick a lot of that, and some colleagues in the room have also had to unpick some of those coaches' ways of working that haven't quite worked for us. So there's a lot of learnings from that it's all well and good saying we're doing this and we've got these Agile coaches in play that are external, but if they're not all on the same hymn sheet and telling the same story and pushed in the right direction, then it will just fail. So that's one of the things that we've learned as well in this space. But success is ahead. We are seeing improvements all the time with it. We are battling away, chipping away at these things to make it happen in the direction that we want. And generally what you do find from when you've done this with teams is they thank you for the inconvenience because they don't see the benefit of it straight away. But we do find that some of the teams pick it up and they do really run with it, and other teams need a bit more hand holding with it, and that's just the spin of it that we find. So transformation 3, so that's the one we're in now, and that's why I say it has been and will be a top down, bottom up, and all the way between. And this time we're going to add, I shouldn't have put framework there because we're not using a framework, we use a toolkit to do this. But this time we're going to make sure middle management are also put into this journey. We have over in our City Walk office, we've got a journey board which shows all the different types of people that we've got, and I haven't actually got a picture of it to hand. I should have put it in the deck really. But it will have all the different sessions that we're doing, all the education pieces, all the workshops, and then there's basically a string that just puts it through, and you can go, right, I'm this person, what am I going to get, how's it going to work? It's coming along quite nicely, and we're about to pull the trigger on it next week. Yep, the 9th, 10th, yep, 10th. So pull the trigger in that space, which is going to start a lot of the training we're doing, and I'll touch on that in a second. So some of the things that we've sort of talked around, one of the things we did find is this piece. Now, I absolutely love this one. It's from the PMO. PMO's dead. Long live the PMO, from Jonathan Smart, who's at Barclays. When we are talking about these things, this is where we're probably looking at. This is the big thing, dev. Yeah, we're so frigging agile now. We've got all this stuff, but then when you're looking at all the other bits across it, well, that's monthly. Steering codes every quarter. Annual waiting for approval, then we've got all this crap going on over here, then we've got integration and this sort of stuff going on, and it absolutely kills us. I remember a presentation done here, it wasn't in here, it was when Agile Yorkshire used to be down the media centre place, wasn't it? Not media. Round Foundry, that's it. There was a presentation done talking about universal credits. Yay! We all know how great a project that was. And it was very similar to what this guy was talking about. He said, we made this bit here agile, but then the waiting for integration in this piece was done by HP, and that was that was done every 6 months because that was the contract. So we had 6-month sprints. And then you start to find other stories that were coming out the back of that. And you do find these are written in contract. It's like, it'll cost us too much to come out of that contract. It'll cost us too much not to come out of the contract if you're going to do this right. And again, in Agile Yorkshire, for those that haven't joined us before, another presentation by NHS Digital talked about how they had to go in front of the select committee to justify how they wanted to do the NHS Spine 2. And they had to actually fight for that money. And that is a great lead story for us. And they managed to get all this stuff really dropped down. And I can't remember the exact numbers now, but it's gone from like £250,000 to do a release to like 30 grand or something like that. So it's a massive drop of what they do. But yeah, time and time again, we start to see this happen in it. And this is what happened with our management consultancy piece. The focus was all at the dev team level. So we're now bringing that back out, and that's something else that we've learned talking to these people. So I hope this is going to work now. This is Jonathan Smart, right? He used to work for Barclays, now works for Deloitte. Very, very intelligent guy. Watch any video you can of his. The PMO's dead, long live the PMO. Brilliant video. There's some really good ones at Seacon. This was his lightning talk. It's 5 minutes. I have to add it in. If you've not seen this, it's bang on the money for the stuff that we've been doing. So I will leave it to him. So there's no way I could ever be able to present as good as he did there, but I think it does bring it to life a lot of the times. A lot of these things you see, and again, I have touched on some of the bits he spoke about and the mistakes that we made certainly in some of those spaces. But again, yeah, so he actually did a really good talk at Seacon, which is the Study of Enterprise Agility conference in London back here at the start of November. And the presentation he gave was actually taking a lot of those bits, and one of the things he talked about was milestones. It's just a thing that tells you how far you are away from something. It doesn't change. You can't move a milestone. That's not the point of it. So you know, it's a really good conversational piece that he does on that, and I highly recommend his stuff. So, as I said, I touched on the framework and then realised I shouldn't really call it a framework. We're going to call it a toolkit. But what toolkit have we chosen? And what we've actually chosen is a framework called Disciplined Agile. The reason for that gives us a lot of freedom in what we want. It's a options framework. Lets you pick different bits you want to do. You know, we did look at SAFe. We realised that we didn't want to spend £5,500 per person just for them to be called a safeagist or whatever they were called these days. You know, I've done SAFe in the past. It's just painful for large corporations. It just makes Dean Leffenwell a lot of money. So when we look at the framework, Disciplined Agile Delivery, that's our engine. We then look at our DevOps, that's our Formula One car. Then our Disciplined Agile IT, that is our pit crew. And then Disciplined Agile Enterprise. So that's how it's sort of spread out. It allows us to go through these different bits. So if we looked at some of this, the stuff that we did in our Transformation 1s and 2 was really around the DA level, how teams are actually pulled together to make these things happen. And now we're really accelerating through some of these other pieces. But this year and into the start of next year, we're really looking at Disciplined DevOps as well as DAD. Towards the end of next year, we're going to look at the Disciplined Agile IT. And then further on from that, Disciplined Agile Enterprise. But we're not saying we're not doing any of those. We're going to look at bits as we do it. So conversation that was had earlier around Agile Finance, Agile Marketing, Agile HR, or People Operations as ideally we want to call them. We are people, not resources. We will start to look at some of these bits if we can to dovetail it in. So that's one area we're going in. So some of the Disciplined Agile principles, you know, these white ones are really what the team on the ground actually enjoy. They like mastering their craft. They like technical excellence. They like to collaborate. They like to measure the right things. Transparency is key to them. Learning continuously, purposeful experiments, delivering continuously, visualizing their workflow. It's about the whole team. Stable teams is really key to them, and trust and respect. So this is how we're trying to get into teams. We're saying these bits, we really do understand that that's what you want, and that this does resonate with our developers and with our testers and with our business analysts and our product owners. This is the things that matter to them. So Disciplined Agile then has these further 7, well here has 6, there's one in the middle. But this is about being awesome, being the best you can, being pragmatic about how we do it. Let's not just follow the line, let's actually look at the piece that's there because the context is what counts. Choice is good. But again, context counts and being pragmatic with it. So that's how we bring the two together there. Optimizing our flow is really key of how we get things in. Looking at our enterprise awareness. So not just looking at our own little bubble, but how does this affect the rest of the the rest of the ecosystem? You know, companies are complex adaptive systems. They're not simple things to change. Hence the analogy that John used there around, you know, it's not a factory. That's the worst thing for a complex adaptive system. It's always moving, things are happening. And then finally, on top of that then, is about delighting our customers. We don't want to just make our customers happy. We want to get to a place where we can start to delight our customers. So and the really nice analogy I've heard on this is that when you go to your hotel and you check in, and you just go to your room. It's nice. It's the bed's made up. You've got some towels. Yeah, you're a happy customer. If you go to the hotel and they say, "Oh, Mr. McCabe, welcome back. Would you like to order some food? Oh, we've been able to give you an upgrade." That delights you. All right, it's not going to happen every time, but that little bit of delight is what's there, and that's that little tipping point that we want to start to do. So the key thing for us all, all these bits on the outside make the individuals in our company happy, but what's going to really drive us forward is delighting our customers. That's going to allow us to have the freedom to do what we want. So one of the things we realised is, do we have a gap? This happens with a lot of teams. Production releases and change requests, constant thing. Development doesn't appreciate the realities of operations. Operations don't understand new development strategies. We've seen this time and time again. So actually, again, in this space here, we brought the operations team together with the development team, and there was just light bulb moments from both of them, and it was really good to see. Finally, the development team got to see operations point of view, and the operations guys got to see what the development side of things happened. So that was really good for us as a piece as we've done on this, and we're just going to keep on driving that forward and opening those conversations up. So the well mindset, so this is really around the DevOpsy side, is to streamline the end-to-end flow, reduce our feedback cycles, about being multidisciplinary teams, standardise our infrastructure, standardise our automation and tools, standardise our development guidelines, and business and product are involved. This just makes things really easy to do. It's not taking away the autonomy fully, but it's doing the bits that matter to us. The autonomy needs to be in the bits that makes us different to our competitors. The rest of the stuff doesn't make us different to them. So why should we burn effort and engineering time on those bits? So by actually having these centralized tooling pieces that we can allow our customers, which are our developers, to be able to consume. So everyone's heard of UX. There's a big thing now called DevX, which is developer experience. If you make the developer experience great, then they're just going to really be happy and start to deliver some really good stuff, because you've taken all the painful items out of their space, which is what they want to see. So optimizing flow, we've seen this time and time again. You do this big change, a big J curve, and what tends to happen is around about here, can't even move it properly now, around about here, the company get bored and they scrap the transformation, and it's because you haven't gone onto this journey yet, because things take time and they don't realise that. So what we're saying is we want to do these little J curves, take this incremental piece as we go through and have evolution around it. And that's sort of, in transformation 2 is what we did. We had a lot of transformations around this, and lots of these little jumps, but not enough for what we wanted. The transition wasn't right for us. So we've certainly taken an approach of using Kaizen improvements. So identifying the potential improvement, trying out the new way of working, assert its effectiveness, and then either we adopt the new way of working or we abandon it for the time being. We always say we can go back to things, and then we make sure we share those learnings with others. So it hasn't happened yet, but we're going to start to have DevOps days and Agile days internally to start sharing these things out. It's just one of the key things that we want to be able to do. So going back to some of our Deming learnings, so plan, do, study, and we're calling it adjust, not act. We want to call it adjust because we want to take the learnings we've got and make the changes that we want and keep going on that cycle. So from the DA side of things, successful experiments, failed experiments, that's what's going to happen as we drive forward with it. And just see that that's good things for us. We're learning all the time as we're stepping up, but we're going at a good rate. So there's a really good article right now that talks about this, which is adopting a prescriptive method or framework, and puts you in like a framework prison, if you like. There's only so far you can go with Scrum, with Kanban, with Safe, with DAD, with Less. They're all there sort of in that sort of space. They'll get to that level in your plateau, and where's your effectiveness coming from over time is what you want to start to work on. So this is probably what we were doing in Transformation 2, our continuous improvement. It was there, we dropped our effectiveness, but we're sort of building on top of it as we were going. But what we wanted is more of a guided continuous improvement, and that's what DA gives us. So they give you a whole load of blades and ideas to look at and give you the ability to look at which one of those is the one you want to drive forward with, and I'll show you some of those in a second. And the reason we think this is good is that a lot of our teams have hit that sort of plateau with Scrum. They've got as great as they can, but how do we go to the next level? And this allows them to have the continuous improvement piece that we're going to start to adopt with them. So this is the one of the pages that we have around the DA side of things. So the Inception piece is really around, we need to form the team, align the enterprise edition. This sort of happens before the team gets together. Construction, we want to make sure the architecture is proven early. We're going to make sure we address the stakeholder needs that are changing, produce a potentially consumable solution, improve our quality, accelerate value delivery. And then transition is finally to ensure we have production readiness and deploy the solution. And then along the bottom there is really where we want to drive into the growing our teams, evolving the ways we work, coordinate our activities, leverage our existing infrastructure, address our risks, and govern our delivery teams. So that's our start of a 10 that we're starting driving into teams. As I say, this part of it is where we're now starting to accelerate in the next few weeks with this. So this is what the blades look like. This is all free and open on their website. So if we're going to take a look at this, if we're going to look for exploring scope, right, so level of detail for our scope document. So the ones with arrows means the ones at the top are your best ones that they believe. And the ones in bold tend to be a good place to start. So exploring usage, explore the domain. Some of them are double bolded where you want to put them, but if there isn't an arrow with it, then it's just like these are good places to start. So this is what they mean by a guided continuous improvement. We want to look at our exploring user interface needs, and this is some of the ideas what you can look at. So it's a starter for 10. It will not document every single option that's out there, but it'll give you a good starting point. And then the same as the reuse engineering, how do you want to go around that? It gives you some good bits to go on and find that out. So that for us was one of the key ones. So finally, I think on this space is this is DAIT. This is disciplined agile for the IT. So solution delivery. This is the disciplined agile delivery. So teams can be agile, lean. This is our DA piece. This is our disciplined DevOps. This is around release management and making sure those feedback and that gets put back into the teams. And then we've got our portfolio management, product management that feeds into our enterprise architecture. So we need the business roadmap to give us a technical roadmap that then feeds back into our portfolio management, into our reuse, and into our teams. And then sitting around the side here, we have our IT governance, our people management, and continuous improvement, and suggesting our improvements as we go. So again, we're on the early journey for this. This is something we could do. So I'm hoping to come back in 6 months' time to say this is where we got to with it, or if we've abandoned it again, maybe. I don't know. I want to be optimistic about this because I believe this is the right direction for us. So just a real high-level piece, high-level delivery cycle, inception, construction, transition, with a lot of iterations. The high-level cycle, a little bit more in-depth in it. You have your concept, you have your inception, construction, transition, production, and retire it. So it's one thing that a lot of teams do forget about is we have to retire these things at some point, ideally. So Dad's Agile is based on Scrum. So you've all seen that sort of mindset of stuff. The lean life cycle is very similar. It allows us then to have that the areas that we want to be consistent, allows us to have that and drives that into teams. If we have teams that need to be exploratory, so your lean startup time mindset, so using the build, measure, learn analogies, that's in there as well, so we're not forgotten about those. It's got a DAD program life cycle, so multiple teams, sub-teams, how does that all fit together? How do we coordinate those? It gives us a toolkit for that, which is really powerful. And there is also a toolkit in there for waterfall or traditional. It's there. There are times when we need to do it. We're not going to get away and say this is a full agile world. We're going to conquer the world with all these stuff. We still have waterfall projects. We have to deliver hardware, store refreshes. We have to order so much kit that takes a lead time on it. There are bits like that. So we try to keep them minimal so we can be effective, but we're not going to write them off as a total thing that we have. So I think that is my last slide there now. Yeah. So basically we're picking up on the DA side. That's how I wanted to leave this. That's our journey we're on. We've got the Choose Your Well is the book, so Choose Your Way of Working. We're going to give teams the support to do it. So as I say, as of next week, we're starting the first 100 people will be trained up and be certified disciplined agilists, so they'll get the basic understanding of how DA works. And next year we'll get another 770 people through that. That's the aim, so it's going to be exciting. And then we're going to start to look at how do we get people to the practitioner level, to the coaching level, to the instructor levels that we want there to be, and how many of them we can get to followers. So this is one of the learnings we've taken from it. We've tried in the first 2 transformations, tried to keep away from a framework or a toolkit. We've taken the realization that we need something. This is the one we've landed on. And I hope to come back in a few months' time to give you the story of it. So thank you very much.